Okay, now that we have our little schematic map, we need to transpose this into our bent-legged pose. Okay, so bend the knee, flex the hip forward a little bit, and in general put the weight of the body, the non-existent body, over the leg so that it looks like it's bearing weight and that we have the right angle. Okay, if you followed the texture painting little tutorial in the tools and techniques, you should be back with something that looks like this and a layer for color. We can get rid of the color layer because we don't need it, and we'll make a new layer at the highest level. So I have to go to level 7, and this is going to be our bent knee layer. So we call this bend, and really this is going to capture our transpose, but we want to transpose to something other than the highest, as is usually the case. And in this instance, the lowest is way too sparse. I mean, this is still the vestige of our Z-sphere construction. And really what we want is we want enough resolution that we can keep the tibia fairly hard and to distribute the rotation across what ends up being the condyles of the femur, right? We're going to try to emulate the roll of the condyles back along the tibial plateau, okay, which is no easy task. And typically, if you were doing like a rig, you would distribute joints through the knee because it's not a single simple hinge joint like something in the elbow, but it actually rotates and translates a little bit. So we need to distribute it. Okay, so it's going to take a couple transposes to do this properly. Okay, so first let's just get rotate, and I'm going to try to mask up to the level of the tibia and try to keep this fairly hard. And we want to start our transpose with a bend in the knee, so we can take it down here. And what's going to happen is we need to hit the sweet spot with our transpose line. Okay, which means it has to kind of sit in the right place to roll the tibia back and start to compress back here. And I'm just going to go a little bit higher, and this is a little bit of trial and error to make sure it's right. But what we expect is we expect eventually a line to appear where the patella in the front slides back to something other than vertical, and it goes back to maybe 30 degrees, and it sits in the little trough between the condyles of the femur. And in the back, essentially the hips are going to rotate down back here, and the line of the biceps femoris tendon is going to shoot back like this, right? So we're going to have to reconstruct this because this is not going to happen with transpose, and we're going to start to get pinching back here. But this is really the back of the knee is an area of huge kind of topological changes between a standing leg and a bent leg. Okay, so let's just see what happens if we do a quick little bend. And we're going to do a bend, but we're also going to do a little translate, right? So we're going to try to capture both the rotation and the translation. And we're going to do it a little bit at a time just to make sure that we don't crunch things down. Okay, and I'm going to get about that much, and then I'm going to remask up here, and I'm going to switch my mask. So I just pulled down from the top and then inverted, and now I'm going to go right in here, and I'll blur one more time with the control click on the mesh, and we'll do back to rotate mode. We'll do a little more rotation. You can see we're getting stretched through here, and that's inevitable. I mean, we have kind of a skin effect, so we're stretching the skin. We can't keep the bone 100% solid in this area. We'll have to reconstruct a tiny bit. Okay, and I think I might actually just stretch a little bit of the bottom down here, so I'm going to rotate this back now. And I think that's probably passable. So we're at kind of slightly at a little bit less than 90 degrees. You should get some buckling in the back, which is natural, and we'll resolve that with some changes in form. sculpted changes in form. We'll have to slide some of these edge loops down. Essentially, we'll have to stretch the quadriceps down because that's actually what accommodates the lengthening of the lengthening of the front of the surfaces. Remember, the patellar ligament doesn't stretch at all. All the lengthening comes from the quadriceps. Okay, and then in the hips up here, actually I'm just going to transpose the entire leg to match kind of the profile of the pose that we're looking at. Right, so it looks like he's going to start to bear weight about like this, approximately. Okay, and then he's going to bend forward at the hips a little bit. So we're going to get some stretch through the gluteal muscles as the pelvis tips forward. And this is going to be a little bit tricky. And I think probably since we have less bony landmarks to respect, like the tibia in our previous transpose, if we step down a level, we can get a little bit softer mask. And then the transpose line is going to be roughly anterior, so in front of the greater trochanter, and slightly up, because that's where the head of the femur goes into its socket. Okay, so we'll just blur this one more time and see how this does. We should get stretch back here and pretty much rotate our proxy for the iliac crest forward. Okay, and that's okay. I'm going to just get a little transpose, just touch it forward. What we're going to have to do is we're going to have to diminish some of the volume in the back here as that gets stretched. But in general, I think that's a decent approximation of where we need to be. Okay, so those are the kind of the two transposes to get us into this position. And let's just see how our higher subdivisions look. And we can't really see when we have the texture map on, so we'll just take the texture map off and see what we have to reconstruct. Most of the stuff below the tibia is good, which was our main purpose, and the stuff that needs to be reconstructed is just what we expect, which is the lengthening of the quadriceps down. So look, we've got a lot of stretch in the quadriceps tendon. We need to redistribute the mass here and tighten that up, and then pull the patella forward. And we'll do that in the next little segment.